I was miserable. My skin was just broken out everywhere. I had like dry, flaky patches, like alligator skin everywhere. My nails wouldn't grow. My hair wouldn't grow. I mean, it's just, and the energy, like I have boundless energy now. Just, and I'm not breaking bones just by standing up anymore. Like it's, I don't even know how to describe. I went from the pit of despair to like I'm on top of the world now.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just encourage people try it for 90 days, like really try it for 90 days
Hmm.
and see how you feel. And you be the judge after 90 days. Do I really believe that meat is the devil and meat is going to kill me? I'm telling you, it's not. Like my triglycerides were 54. They used to be in the 200s. My
Hmm.
last lipid panel, my triglycerides were 54. My HDL was 88.
Hmm.
And they're only focused on that LDL, but every other metabolic marker is fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, and also if all your metabolic markers are improving, everything's getting better, your objective health is getting better, your organ function is getting better in multiple organ systems, why are we saying that LDL is a bad thing? Everything else is trending in a good direction. There's copious amounts of evidence to show that LDL and normal LDL, which is higher than the normal reference ranges, is actually beneficial to health and longevity. And and that fits with the trend. Everything is getting better. And so I would say that's getting better as well. But saying, this is the fly in the ointment. Everything's getting better, but you're gonna kill yourself because this thing that is improving your entire body and every organ system is also killing you. I'm sorry, how's that exactly? And also, you know, you're gonna die faster doing going the other way. Even if 40 years down the road you got heart disease, at least you're not dead on the table now from all of the different sorts of complications that you had. I mean, you can even just say, it's like, okay, so are you really telling me that you want me to go back to being 90 pounds heavier, chronic kidney failure, on a transplant list, circling towards dialysis, on 120 units of insulin, on Humira, having massive issues with autoimmunity. You're telling me that you want me to do that instead of what I'm doing now because that's going to be healthier for me. Is that really what you're telling me? And, just do it in a very, like you're talking to a dumb child because that is how they're acting. Is that really what you're telling me, doctor? Are you really telling me that that's better for my health to go back to that so that I can lower my LDL? You're telling me that that's better on your medical license and malpractice insurance. You're telling me that that's a better outcome, that that's a better direction for me to go. So if I do that and
yeah,
I listen to you and I get all these diseases again, you're telling me that your malpractice insurer is going to be happy with you giving me that advice. Is that what you're telling me? Put it in real terms that's going to slap them awake, saying, hey, the advice you're giving is going to get your ass sued. Do you realize that? Do your damn homework and think. Use the brain that God gave you and think, because what you are saying is insane and you are going to kill people. And even though you have the best of intentions, you are in a position of authority. People are going to listen to you. And if they
yeah,
take your advice, they're going to die. And that is your fault. So, and the idea, well, it's theoretical that high protein causes damage to your kidneys. Yeah, well, it was a theory. It was never borne out by the data. Okay, but what does the data show? Data shows the opposite. So there are studies. It isn't just a guess. You don't have to just guess. It started out as a guess. It was a dumb guess. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. But now we have evidence. We have decades of evidence showing the exact opposite. And it's just they're not looking. They're a nephrologist who hasn't looked at the evidence for their own specialty. It's one organ. You got to deal with one organ, buddy. Like, really? Like you
I know.
can't stay on top of the literature
No.
for one freaking organ, and you're going to make recommendations based on incomplete knowledge set. I mean, that's ridiculous. And and it just blows my mind how people would think that that's an okay thing to do, make recommendations based on no evidence and not even looking for the evidence. Well, we don't have evidence of that. That translates to I've never looked in to see if there's evidence of that. That's what that means. That means I
Yeah.
wasn't spoon fed that by the drug companies and the drug reps who come in on Tuesdays and buy me lunch. And so therefore it doesn't exist because I'm the expert. So if I haven't seen it, it doesn't exist. So if anybody says, well, there's no evidence for that, ask them, have you specifically looked for evidence of that? Because there is evidence of that. And there are people that are discussing this evidence and reporting on this evidence. There's copious amounts of papers on it. I can send you some if you like. Would you like me to email you evidence? Would you like me to email you studies showing this? Because you saying that there's no evidence is not true. It just means that you have not looked for the evidence. Have you looked? Have you even done a search on Cochrane or on PubMed or Google Scholar? Have you even asked the question? High protein diets, kidney function. Ketogenic diets, kidney function. Have you even looked? Have you attempted to look? Because if you have not, then how can you say there's no evidence? You haven't even bothered to check. So yeah, that bugs me. And just going back to what you said earlier, where they said, "Oh, you have to have this many carbs, and then you take your insulin." I'm sorry, weren't you taking insulin because you had high blood sugar in the first place? Because you're making blood sugar, right? And so that's a little backwards, isn't it? You have to eat carbs so that you can take your insulin. Well, why do I need to take my insulin? Because your blood sugar is too high. Okay, but doesn't it get higher when I eat carbohydrates? It's like it's backwards. Okay, so why do I need to take carbohydrates in? Oh, because the insulin will drop your blood sugar too low. But I'm taking the insulin because my blood sugar is high. Like, oh yeah, yeah. And so it's like, well, why don't I just take less insulin? Preposterous. It's like, what are you talking about? You
I
know,
know.
it's like it blows my mind, that you're just chasing your tail. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. I've had people tell me that they're like, well, I'm type 1 diabetic, so I have to eat carbs. I can't do ketogenic diet. You're the exact person who should do ketogenic, and then you'll use less insulin. Well, I have to eat carbs because I have to take insulin, and if I don't have carbs, and I my insulin, will kill me. It's like, well, why are you taking insulin then? Why don't you just not eat
Reduce it.
carbs and not take insulin? There you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's wild to me. I actually had a patient recently, just saw her a couple of weeks ago. She went into the hospital recently with diabetic ketoacidosis, um, 3 months ago, and her husband was a patient of mine, knew about, my ideas about things and how I practice. And he brought her in because he's trying to look for, okay, is there anything else that we're missing here that may be contributing to this? So we did a full blood panel looking at things. And so, okay, look, you need to go on a ketogenic diet. I think a carnivore diet's the best one, but at least ketogenic. Talked about it. She went pretty much on a ketogenic carnivore diet, massively improved. I mean, at first, it was the same with you. You just had these massive blood sugar swings and drops and spikes and hypos and just playing, this game of cat and mouse with her blood sugar and her insulin and having all sorts of problems as a result of that. And instantly, as soon as she changed her diet, flatline, just perfectly well controlled, no issues,
Hmm.
using far less insulin. And because she was in the honeymoon period, and we were able to address this from a root cause perspective. Thankfully, her pancreas hadn't, or the beta islet cells in her pancreas hadn't completely been destroyed. And
Right. They weren't
so,
burnt out yet.
yeah. And so, even though at first she required insulin and her C peptide, which is a marker of how much insulin your body's producing, was non existent, after a month or so, 6 weeks on this, where she was getting better and better control, I checked your C peptide again. All of a sudden, it's there. It's very low, but it was there.
Wow.
And she's using less and less insulin. 1 month later, we checked her blood work again, and her C-peptide had gone up another 50%. Now it's in the middle of the normal range. And her insulin levels were normal. It was actually perfect. It was an ideal level. And she was not taking any outside insulin. And her blood
Mm.
sugars were perfect. So now she's not diabetic anymore. She's not type 1 diabetic anymore. And that's how this can work. You can actually reverse this disease. Now, if this has been going on for years and years and years, those cells are likely not coming back. Have shown that in animal studies, though, that ketogenic diets um, can actually regrow beta islet cells in animals, in mice. There was a study on um, fasting mimicking diets. There's look at all these benefits from fasting with diabetes, and say, well, it's difficult to fast. And so, what about a fasting mimicking diet, which is just a ketogenic diet, gets you into the metabolic state. Same metabolic state is when you're just not eating carbohydrates, as when you're not eating. And so they found that yes, just a ketogenic diet as little as 4 days a month was able to reverse not only type 2 diabetes, but even type 1 diabetes in mice and regrow the beta islet cells. And they were trying to see if they could do that in humans, but so far I don't think they've ever shown that. But there are these anecdotal cases of people in that honeymoon period being able to reverse it, and and that lines up with 140 years of evidence that that's how you treated these sorts of situations. And that was the thing, like your doctor saying that well, you're my rock star patient, not everybody can do it. Have you tried? I mean, why would you not try? And I mean, really what they're saying is that I don't believe that that's what it is. I think it's a fluke, you know because,
Mm.
well, they wouldn't be able to do that. Well, you can at least try. You can at least say, like, hey, here's the thing, and I've got patients that can really massively help their situation. You just throw it out there, and like you say, give them an option, and and then you just change your practice and go, okay, and then you start seeing more and more people, changing and massively improving their health as a result of that. I mean, it's negligent to not do that. Once you've seen that evidence, when you've seen this work in real world situations, it doesn't matter if you have a study to back it up or not. You're seeing it work. How can you not do that? You know, I I don't know. It really blows my mind. But that goes back to Hippocrates. Hippocrates said, don't just do that. Was part of the Hippocratic Oath. Don't just do things because they've always been done and you just hope they work. Specifically, we're talking about don't just pray to Apollo and pray to the spirits and hope that something happens. Do things that work. Look at the evidence with your own eyes and say, this is working, that's not. Do the thing that works. And if something else comes along that works better, you do that instead. That's what you do. And that was the basis, the fundamental basis of the ever evolving science of medicine, Western medicine. That's how we practice. Doctors would look and listen and pay attention, and they'd see their patients reverse something like, whoa, I've never seen that before. And your endocrinologist had the great, had that right instinct at first, saying like, whoa, how the hell did you do this? And then you told them and go like, well, it's not sustainable. Well, that's up to me, isn't it? Right? That's not really on you. Whether I sustained it, that's me. That's my decisions. All you need to know as a doctor is that this works. And then you look into that and go like, okay, what's going on here? And I should look into this more. But the idea of sustainability, I mean, that's a very personal matter. I guess they could be saying, well, it's not sustainable because your LDL is gonna go up and then you're gonna die of a heart attack. And it's like, well, diabetes is the leading cause of heart disease. Let's not kid ourselves. And you've just reversed diabetes. And so why are we thinking that heart disease is on the table? In fact, just the last thing, that I'll say here is that Dr. Kraft, with the Kraft test, Kraft, this is a very involved glucose tolerance test where you take some high dose glucose, and then you check your blood sugar, but you also check your insulin. And so you check your insulin response, and how much that is, and is that appropriate, the amount of insulin with the amount of blood sugar. And then you check it again in 2 hours, and you get in 5 hours, or 5 hours total. And you see these sort of patterns. And he found that looking at nearly 30,000 people, that there was really only 5 patterns that emerged. And you could plot these out, and there was the different stages of insulin resistance and blood sugar dyscrasias that don't get picked up just with a blood sugar test or a glucose tolerance test or an HbA1c, right? That you have to look for the subtle interplay with insulin. And if you go back to one of these 5 models, that things start to go wrong, and you call that point diabetes, in these nearly 30,000 people, 100% of the heart disease patients had diabetes, and zero of the non-diabetics had heart disease, right? So, it's just that we're calling diabetes the end stage fulminant diabetes, where the body just cannot compensate anymore, and it's just the game's over. But if you recognize it, there's actually starting much earlier than that, based on the Kraft test data set, you actually realize that you're already causing serious problem at that point, and you're having all these sorts of diseases after that subsequently. And so being able to reverse diabetes is really the main thing there. Like, oh, it's not sustainable, you're going to get heart disease. No, in fact, I'm much less likely to now, thank you, because my diabetes is gone. And it's pretty wild that you had that experience. I'm very sorry. I completely understand why you would switch doctors, because that's got to be very frustrating, to just have these people having the evidence right there staring them in the face, and then go, well, there's no evidence for this.
Yeah. And there's like no, what really bothers me is there's no curiosity.
Yeah.
There's no, well, normally people don't get off the kidney transplant list unless A, they die, or B, they get a kidney. So what's different about this one case? Where's the curiosity? And how can I apply that to other patients? Like, I don't see that anywhere in any of the specialists I see. None of them. And it's exhausting. It's frustrating. It's like I'm treading water with a 50-pound weight around my leg every time I go. And I'm not a doctor, but I feel like I've done more in-depth research paper reading than the majority of my doctors. I've done more nutrition investigation than my doctors. And that's not right. That is not right. Because I'm just the average girl. I'm just the average woman that had this laundry list of health issues, that had enough and was like, okay, I've tried everything else. I've tried doing it their way. So let me try doing the opposite of what they say. And bam, things are reversing. And that, to me, that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable for our healthcare to be like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me just throw more pills at her. 19 medications at one point in my life. 19. I was taking a medication for a side effect for a medication. It's like, why are we even taking this medication? Like, it's bananas. It's crazy town. It's crazy town. When I go to the doctors, no joke. Often I'm firing doctors. Often. And I try my best. Like, hey, I'll bring in a research paper to them. When you have time, I know you're really busy, but you might want to read this research paper. And it's just crickets. It's just no response. That's not the standard of care. Well, maybe we should change the standard of care. You think? Yeah. Like, think how much healthier all your patients would be.
Yeah.
It's just disheartening, but there is hope. I'm walking proof of it. Like, I'm living, breathing, walking proof. I have all my lab results. If anybody wants like copies of my lab results, I will gladly prove it to you that, your body can heal. Even if you've done damage to it, for me, like 30 years of type 1 diabetes, of A1Cs, 11, 12s, 13s, your body can heal. No, I'm not delusional. I don't think my kidneys are going to go back to normal filtration rate, but I'm not on dialysis.
Yeah.
I don't require dialysis. I'm not on the transplant list anymore. So, hey, improvement is improvement, and I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's it. It's improved enough anyway that you're able to go without copious amounts of medication, dialysis, or a kidney transplant. You never know. I mean, there is such a thing as damage done, but if the more strict you are, you're getting rid of all these sorts of things. You just give your body a chance to heal, and you see what happens. I mean, I think that your kidney filtration rate will improve as time goes on with a carnivore diet because not only is it ketogenic if you reverse your diabetes, which is the leading cause of kidney dysfunction, but now you've gotten rid of all these nephrotoxic chemicals that are in plants and come along with plants like the different pesticides and insecticides and herbicides and things like that that go on those things. And all the nasty, miserable artificial ingredients that they put in, the processed foods. You're cooking whole food for yourself. It's a single ingredient, meal. And you don't have, you've cut out so much stuff that absolutely disrupts and damages your kidney function. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. So I would be actually quite confident that your kidney function will improve from where you are now, probably significantly. I've seen people down at a good friend of mine was down at 19% kidney function. He was 35, and he made this post on social media on Instagram saying that he just got this diagnosis from his doctor that he's got kidney, late stage kidney failure. He's 35 years old and he's circling the drain. And he said, I don't know if I'm even going to live long enough to see my daughter graduate high school. And so I reached out to him and said, listen, this is something you can give a try. Here's some studies that actually show that higher protein is better at ketogenic diets, improve kidney function, that you have all these, plant toxins that destroy the kidneys, such as oxalates, but there's so many more. And I just sent that to him and let him do what he wanted. And he just said, look, I've got nothing to lose because my kidney function is only getting worse. I'm going to need to go on dialysis soon. I'm going to have to get a kidney transplant and I may not. And, you don't necessarily have a full normal life expectancy after you get a transplant. It extends life from where you are, but it's not just like, oh yeah, everything's fine now. You're on heavy medications and you increase your infection risk, your cancer risk. They don't necessarily last an entire lifetime. Some of them, you get a good, 9 years, 20 years out of them. And then they start to, not work as well, or sometimes they can actually, like things like livers actually do really well. But depending on the organ you're getting transplanted, like it's not just like, oh yeah, bang, you get, 70 years done. That's not the case. You get more life, but you're not getting a normal life, not by any stretch of the imagination, by distance or quality. And so it's just like, okay, I'll give it a try. He didn't even go 100% carnivore. Like he still had a bit of avocados, which actually do have oxalates. And, so, having a bit of, avocados and, maybe a couple other things, but very, very much ketogenic, 95% meat, 98% meat. His kidney function went from 19% to 80% in 3 months, you
Wow.
know? And his
Wow.
nephrologist was like, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to destroy your kidneys. You have to stop this right away. He said, but my kidneys are getting better, doing the opposite of what you said. As I this is just a fluke. This is going to come back. This is going to cost you all this stuff. And he's just like, listen, everything that you've told me to do made my kidneys worse. All the medications and ideas, you said go plant-based, you say cut out meat, eat more plants. I did all that. My kidneys only got worse. I now did the opposite of what you did. I'm off all the drugs, and now my kidney function has quadrupled. So I'm not going to listen to you because obviously you have the wrong information. And for that doctor to not even be able to see how ridiculous his recommendation was, saying, "Hey, your kidney function is getting better, but oh, you just wait, you just wait." Well, I did wait, and my kidneys ended up on the transplant list. So what the hell are you talking about? How can you say that my kidney function are going to get worse? What you were doing was my kidney function was getting worse. Well, that's just what happens. Well, now it's getting better. So no, that's not what happens. But you're saying that I'm going to make it worse when in fact you see direct evidence that it got a lot better. I don't understand the cognitive dissonance that people have. They've lost that curiosity, like you said, that scientific that idea of scientific endeavor and curiosity, where let's try to figure things out. It's like, no, everything's being figured out. We already know. All we have to do is repeat everything. We did that actually. We're probably in the second iteration of this. Galen took Hippocrates' recommendation, saying you need to experiment, you need to trial, you further your understanding of medicine to see what works the best. And so he did that, and he was one of the best people who did that at the time. And I believe he was the personal physician for Marcus Aurelius back in the Roman Empire. And Galen was very famous, very, very famous guy. Um, and and so very good at what he did. Took that idea of experimental, endeavor and scientific endeavor really to heart and really tried to find out as much as he could. And he found out a lot more than a lot of other people. But the guy was so arrogant and so overly confident and full of himself that he said, "Don't worry about what Hippocrates said, how we've been practicing medicine for the last several centuries since Hippocrates, how he revolutionized medical practice. You don't need to experiment on your own. You don't need to test this and do that. All you need to do is study me because I've discovered everything. Everything there is to
Hmm.
know about the human body and medicine, I have discovered it. I know everything. I have figured out everything. Using those principles, I have figured out everything. So
Hmm.
now you don't need to figure it out yourself. All you have to do is study me, read my books, learn my teachings, and that's it." Western medicine for 1,500 years was just direct rote memorization of Galen. And it took about 1,200 years before someone who started actually doing a lot of dissection, because it was illegal. The church wouldn't let you do dissections for millennia, because it was desecrating human remains and things like that. During the Renaissance period, around there, they started letting people do dissections because the artists like Da Vinci, Michelangelo, etc., they wanted to do dissections so they could see how the body fit together perfectly, so they can make more perfect, lifelike art for the church. So I said, okay, that's fine. Now doctors were allowed to do this too. And so there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but he was the personal physician of the emperor of Austro-Hungarian Empire, and very brilliant guy. Like the day he graduated medical school, they made him head of the medical school. This guy was just super genius, right? And and they were doing dissections. And so what they had is they had these bodies that had been dissected, and they had a guy who would just sit up on a big platform, and he would just read from Galen, like, and this is this structure, and this is this structure, and this is this structure, and you have a demonstrator like pointing at the different structures on it, and there's just this guy just reading. That's all it was. He just wrote, learning from Galen, and this kid had done a lot of human dissections. He'd also done a lot of animal dissections. And he realized that some of these structures that Galen was talking about didn't exist in humans. They only existed in non-human primates. And all of a sudden it dawned on him. He's like, hold on a second. Galen's never dissected a human before. And all of a sudden, just like that was that little crack in the dam where he just went, holy shit. Like, what else is he just making up? You know? And so he started thinking about it and looking at that, and he started publishing this and writing about it. The whole medical establishment that wanted his head. He was very famous, he was very influential, and so he was able to just sort of weather it. But he was just like, hey, no, this is wrong. We're doing this wrong. And so he started putting out other publications. Um, he ended up just sort of quitting and retiring off and, onto some island somewhere and just chilling out because he's like, I'm just sick of you people. Um, but that was the crack in the dam. But it took another 200 years to actually start going back to the original uh, Hippocratic sort of, charge, which was experiment, do what works, test, see, try new things. Don't just do things because they've always been doing things. And that Galen exemplified and then broke. It took another 200 years, and that's when we get like Francis Bacon and Harvey and all these other sorts of people that actually started furthering our understanding and knowledge of the human body and medicine. Now we're in the second iteration of that. We're doing things. Oh, I taught that in medical school. That's in residency. No, that's what we do. And okay, but you see the evidence in front of you that that's wrong. Nope, 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 nope. Can't be happening. It's nothing to see here. So we're in that same sort of thing that we're just doing the same old thing because that's what we were taught and that's what we were told. And we're not using our brain. We're not trying to figure out anything new. If you don't try to figure anything else new, you're never going to get anywhere. There's going to be no progress, right? And so, oh, that's for these other people and these researchers. No, no, it's for the people on the ground seeing what works and what doesn't work. You can't have people working with theories. You can't have people who talk about these things in the abstract. Oh, well, this study says this and this study says that. Okay, but when you apply that to your patient set, what happens? Right? That's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. And so you have all these people saying, well, this is what the studies and this is what the data and this is what that. Well, no, that's what the studies and the data that you're looking at say. But then when you have two competing theories, you should have evidence with which to test them against. And one of the best ways to test that is on the ground. And you have patients that are doing X and you have patients that are doing Y. Who's better off? And you're doing Y and you're better off than every single one of their patients. So where exactly is the disconnect where they think, okay, maybe I should try that? Like, do you have a responsibility to your patients or don't you? Do you want the best outcomes for your patient or don't you? Or just want to, punch the clock and just do what you've always been doing, get paid, go home, have a drink and just forget your day, because that's a depressing existence. And that's why so many doctors get burnt out because it doesn't work. It doesn't go well. People, they just get worse and worse and worse. We're the only form of life on earth or in existence that just decays as we go. We just have all these just horrific problems. Our bodies are just falling apart, and it's as you never see anything like that in nature anywhere. But we're just the exceptions, I guess. And you just accept that, and you just see these people getting worse and worse and worse, despite all your best efforts and all the medical knowledge and information. And people are just dying in front of you, and people just get burnt out and be like, I can't do this anymore. And then they're getting sick. And then they're doing all the things that they've recommended for 40 years, and they're getting all the same problems that their patients were getting and not getting better. And they're like, well, what the hell? What am I supposed to do? And then you see someone right in front of you saying like, hey, I did something different and I got different results. Imagine that. And absolutely not. It's not sustainable, blah, 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 blah. I, I'm sorry for going on a rant, but that really bothers me, as I think you can tell.
Me as well. One of my least favorite doctors is my oncologist. And I remember when I switched, because I had to take Retacrit injections because my hemoglobin is so low because of my kidney function.
Yeah.
And these injections inspire my bone marrow to make more red blood cells. And I remember I used to have to go every 14 days and get lab work and a Retacrit injection. And it was about a month after I started Carnivore. And I was real heavy into red meat when I first started Carnivore. That was like, I was just like lion diet, straight up lion diet. And for the first month, I didn't need an injection. And then I went back the next 2 weeks, didn't need another injection. And I went something like 90 days without requiring an injection.
Wow.
And finally, because I saw the doctor every 90 days, normally I just go in for lab work and injections if needed. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing the Carnivore diet. Matter of fact, I eat nothing but red meat. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's going to damage your blood vessels. You're going to, and I'm like, well, then I'm going to die a happy woman, feeling the best I've ever felt. I mean, it's just doctor after doctor after doctor that I've seen. I just have to listen to it and let it go out the other ear. Like, I'm here for my insulin refills. I'm here for what obviously I need. I need a Retacrit injection, But all of your nutrition advice, it in one ear out the other. Like I have to kind of like grit my teeth and bear it.
Yeah. Well,
So
I guess you can always just say, it's like, well, it seems to be working for me, so I'm just going to keep doing it.
yep, yep.
And you just keep doing that, and the less phased you are, and the less sort of like pissed off you get, the more pissed off they'll get. That's one of the most infuriating things is when you're upset and the other person is not, and they're just talking to you in a calm way, like you're a child having a tantrum, and you're just like, well, I mean, it's working for me, so I don't see why I should stop. And I say, oh, you're going to get heart disease. Well, all my biomarkers say that I'm not, and so I'm fine. And I've lost 90 pounds, and I've reversed diabetes, and I've reversed all my autoimmune issues, and I've come off these medications, all of which are going to help me prevent heart disease and further deleterious, health ramifications. And so it's working for me, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And you do that, and they're just going to keep just screaming against the wall, and it's not going to go anywhere. And then they're going to be like, God damn it, what the hell's going on? And it might actually make them think, but at least hey, it's a little fun for you because you can watch them get pissed off and squirm, and B, it's not taking up your mental energy dealing with idiots that just don't want to listen or think. And I have patients that have gone down to like 14% heart function, ejection fraction. And then 3-4 months later on a carnivore diet, they have normal ejection fractions and they're off all their medications. So, I mean, this is completely life altering and life changing. And we can get people off those transplant lists and have more resources available to them.